Okay, it's going. Guys, it's
Yeah,
going.
how's everyone's math eyes going?
Love
Oh,
me
pretty
my
good.
love
Pretty
me
It's
my
a
good.
work
math
in
high.
progress.
Mine's going.
How's it going? Hello, everyone. This is
What's
What's
up?
up,
What's
Beijing?
up, Beijing?
this is the first episode of the Chinese Canadian Student Alliance podcast, hosted by Ian and Duncan. And today we have our guests and history expert Zhen He, who is a well-known scholar on everything Chinese, and we have
True.
Sebby.
And we have Sebby.
Yeah,
Oh,
So
I don't get.
Sebby.
I don't get a title.
No.
That's too bad.
And we have Sebby. So,
we well, let's start off with our guests introducing themselves. We already gave a little title for Zen, but we don't know much about this Sebby guy. So everyone can introduce themselves for the podcast.
All right. Well, I've known Duncan and Ian for a few years, about 3 years each now. They've been my good friends at the York School. I myself, I'm half Chinese, half Indian, but I have been. I'm happy to be on this podcast, and I'm excited for what's to come.
all right, Zen.
Yeah, so my name is Zhen. I've also, similar to Sebby, been friends with Duncan and Ian for a number of years. Unlike Sebby, though, who was born in Canada to immigrant parents, I was actually more so a first generation immigrant, having been born in China myself. And I'm quite pleased and very grateful to be able to have this opportunity of bringing my experience to this podcast. Thank you very much.
Just a disclaimer: we don't believe that Sebby is any less Chinese because he is born in Canada, but it just provides a different experience and a different perspective
Different.
perspective
it's
to this
true.
podcast.
Duncan,
Um,
do you want to introduce yourself or
sure.
it's okay?
I'm Duncan, also friends with Ian and Sebby and Zen for many years. I was born in China, but I immigrated at a very young age and grew up here. So I'm mostly Canadian. But yeah, that is my background.
And I am Ian. I have gone to the York School for 4 years, and I have been Chinese for 17 years.
Well said, well said.
I was also born in China, and I moved here when I was 6. So I'm also mostly Canadian, but here we are. So,
All right. Do you guys want to start with your questions, or?
Right. So how does it feel? How does it feel being Chinese in Canada? What would separate your experience with someone who's more traditionally Canadian?
If Sebby, you don't want to go first, then I suppose I will. I think one thing that I've noticed quite a lot is because of I guess more traditional familial upbringing. I have a lot of habits that, let's say, some of my other friends here in Canada wouldn't have. For example, if I were to like go out to lunch with my friends, I'm much more adamant about like finishing my food, and not like wasting any or like throwing in the trash than other people are. So I think that is a good thing in itself.
Right, I agree. I also like whenever I see like people not finishing the food, I always ask to finish it
Well,
for
Duncan, you
them.
always finish your food, so it's okay.
I always ask to
Duncan.
finish it for them because I dislike seeing food go to waste, and so I will take responsibility for making sure that we use our resources to the utmost capability, I would say.
Well said.
Well said.
All right. So for me, growing up Chinese in Canada, so I'm only half Chinese, but I would say I have a lot of influence from my mom. So I would go to a lot of these Chinese family gatherings, usually in Scarborough or Markham or Mississauga. And every weekend, we go and see my family, and it'd be a little bit hard for me sometimes because I don't speak Cantonese. Sadly, my grandmother, who was teaching it to me, died when I was around 8. So I never really got to learn Cantonese. So sometimes I feel sad when I'm with some of my older relatives who only speak Cantonese and I can't talk with them. But like Zen said, there's other things about being brought up Chinese that I quite appreciate. For example, one is like wearing shoes in houses. Like who even? Why would you not wear shoes? Why would you like wear shoes in house? That doesn't make sense. So I just
True.
having slippers is just kind of second nature to me at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say like trying to like growing up like in a Chinese household and like because I grew up here like at a young age, so like trying to learn like English and Chinese at the same time is like I would say a very big struggle. And um like my Chinese used to be like way better than it is now. And like now it's kind of frustrating sometimes when I'm out with other family members and I realize I'm having a hard time picking up some things that I know I would have been able to or like a couple years ago. So yeah, I have the same like feeling with that.
Here's an interesting question because I've heard it many times, but like, do you guys think it's like possible for someone to be like truly or like completely bilingual, in which case they have mastery of both languages, like to the same extent?
I think not from a Chinese perspective, but I've been to Montreal a few times, and I think you really see the contrast between English and French. I think in that case, you can see how they easily switch between English and French. And I do have a few Chinese friends. I mean, I know usually whenever I go to your house, you guys only speak Mandarin with your parents, but I have a few friends who will constantly switch back and forth. So I think at that point, as long as you're able to read and write in both languages, I think you can say you're truly bilingual.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Another definition that I heard about a while ago was that people say like whatever language you think in is like your true like mother tongue or like true master language. But then again, I feel like I don't know about you guys, but like for me, because I spent like so much time learning math in young age in Chinese, like even these days, oftentimes I'll find like it's easier to like do math in Chinese. But when I'm like writing and like when I'm like thinking about stuff, I think in English. So I think that's
Yeah,
pretty interesting.
I have a similar story about that. Like one time when I was like, um, I was a little bit forgetful. Like, I mean, I was a little like,
I already know what you're gonna say.
I was,
I
I
already know what you're saying.
I was getting home from it was a late night out, and I was like a little tired. I was having a hard time remembering
Yeah.
the passcode into my house,
Oh,
right?
You were tired. Yeah, you must have been really tired.
And like I realized that I had a much better like time like trying to remember it like in Chinese than I did in English because I feel like memorizing numbers in Chinese maybe because I grew up doing a lot of math in Chinese as well. It was much easier to repeat the numbers in Chinese than in English.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why were you that tired that night? You just couldn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it was after prom night, and we were like having a good time, and I was just a little. I was a little late. I was
Yeah.
tired. I
Right,
think
Late home.
I think it impaired my memory a little bit.
I mean, like, yeah, for me too. It's just like it's really counting for me. Like if I'm counting in like big numbers, I always use Chinese in my head. But like, I don't know if you guys, but like, I don't know about you guys, but whenever like I speak Chinese, there's just these like certain words that I more often than anything else because like they're the only ones I remember.
like what?
What do you mean by that?
Like I like you know how like there's like multiple words for like get or like like walk or something like that. There's like always
Yeah.
one I default to. I don't know. It's like
I know for me, I remember a lot of stuff in Cantonese just because I would say my mom spoke only Cantonese to me when I was a baby, but my dad doesn't speak any Cantonese. He's Indian, so
Right.
I kind of blame my dad for that part. But I still remember a few words like 快递 is like hurry up. I remember like that's like one word I'll always remember. I'm trying to think of other words like 洗手, like wash your hands. Like mom would always say that before you eat every meal, like that kind of thing. Like those words I'll always just remember. Yeah.
Bro, my dad does the same thing to me when I was young, but in Japanese because like he worked in Japan for a number of years. So like yeah, so when he told me to hurry up, he would be hayaku hayaku. If he thought I was annoying, he'd be like urusai. So I know the Japanese words as well.
Yeah, I guess like it's like what you like learn as a kid is like what really like especially like
Yeah.
probably like in the first few grades is like that's when your brain is like growing the most, right? So like that's a lot of the stuff that you retain even till now, even if you don't use it often. I feel like.
Yeah, that's true.
So so we go to the York school, and one privilege one of us here has is that the York school is a very international school, and because of that, we have the privilege to take Mandarin at the York school. And Sebby, the only student here who does take Mandarin, because oh wait, Ian also takes. Sorry, I forgot. I
What
forgot
are
you.
you saying, bro?
I don't even know. I forgot. I completely forgot you also take man. Okay, whatever. But the two of you who do take Mandarin at the school, how is that experience for you?
I mean, Miss Zhao is a very like traditional Chinese teacher, and like she taught for China for like most of her life, I think. So there are certain approaches to her teaching that are very different to those like other teachers that we have for a lot of our classes. Like Miss Zhao is not afraid to yell at her students if she
Right.
needs to, or if she doesn't need to. And I feel like, I mean, there are certain good things about that. Like if I don't finish my homework, like it's no way, right? But I feel like sometimes it's not as necessary as it is other times. But that's just the way she teaches, and I feel like I've adapted to that over like the few years of taking Mandarin.
Yeah, kind of to add on what Ian said, Miss Sao reminds me a lot of my teachers in my Chinese school days. So she's very traditional, but I would say in the end, while some kind of question her methods, she does get the job done. People always score high on the Mandarin IB exams, and I think she's really good at teaching to the test, especially for recognizing words and writing. Since day one, she's always taught us, okay, recognize the radical, try and put together the word, and when you're at the high reading comprehension level, you really just think, oh wow, thanks for Sal. I know what this means now, thanks to you. So I would say, although her methods, as Ian mentions, are a little bit, some people don't necessarily agree with them. They work out in the end. Yeah.
Right. Like I also went to Chinese school as when I was a kid. Like even though I quit, mostly because the teachers were very strict. But like looking back, like because they were strict, it made me more like disciplined into getting my work done. And like,
Yeah.
do you think that's something like that's important in learning like such a difficult language like Mandarin? Because like
I think
it is great as like one of the more difficult languages to learn.
hmm, I think with any language, the key is really to practice. So Estelle was very, very adamant on you doing because she'll
Yeah,
assign homework every class. But I would say the reading comprehension every class she assigns for homework, it really just helps you ingrain the stuff in your head. Right now I have my oral, so I'm preparing for it by just reading out my script. So as you can see, right,
Right.
she's very, 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 very on about Mandarin always being with you. So I there's never been a weekend where I don't do Mandarin. So I would say that the way she teaches it really helps you ingrain Mandarin. And I think if it wasn't for that, it would be a lot harder language to learn.
That sounds pretty
yeah,
good, especially given that I don't know. Maybe I guess sometimes I do believe that like if I did practice more of my French, I'd probably be a lot better, but oh well.
So Zen, you had have like the longest time growing up in China compared to the rest of us. Is there any differences you would say it's like being in China than being here? Because you've spent the most time there out of the four of us, I think.
Could you like specify like exactly what you mean by that? Like, you mean like like the education system or like
Yeah.
other
Did you
aspects
go
of
to
day-to-day life?
Did you go to school there? When
Yes, I did because growing up, my parents, well, my parents thought about putting me to China to Mandarin Day school, but decided to just like bring me back to China instead, because that would have been more effective, and it is actually. So yeah, I was in China first, like for like junior kindergarten, but then also for grades 1 to 3. So there's that, yeah. And I feel like contrary to like what some people might actually imagine, I mean, the teachers aren't strict as in that they're like yell at you all the time. After all, I feel like doing that is kind of mean sometimes and not very effective. I think more often than not, it's just that like teachers in China, and I guess like the same applies to teachers, I guess, in other countries as well that are not in the West, is that teachers in these places have like a lot more power and control over the students and what like they can like choose to do. For example, like, you know, if I like did something bad in China, a a common punishment for me would be that I would have to stay after school and like copy down like textbooks and stuff and like just write and practice my writing for like, let's say 1 or 2 hours. Unfortunately though, teachers in the West can't do that because they can't just, force a child to stay at school. I mean, detention is a thing, but not to, well, just to give us a little nudge, the policy of the York School, um, it is not very effective. It is not very effective. So, yeah, I would say that is the main difference. And I don't know about you guys, but I think at least personally, my personal opinion, I do believe that there are cases where I believe that teachers should be afforded a greater degree of authority and a greater degree of control over students, for the students' best interest, of course.
Right. Like I say like in this like in our Western culture, the the not even like the government but like society gives more like liberties and freedoms to like students and like because like I remember like when I talked to my mom I talk about like things like students would do at school and like my mom would say like if she ever did that like
Yeah.
it wouldn't have gone well, right? So like
Yeah.
do you think there's any benefits in that type of system? Like giving students more liberty? Or
I think it's yeah, sorry. I think it's definitely better to give students more liberty in like let's say the later stages. Let's say like, for example in like, high school or in like grades like 10, 11, 12. Because I think by then, students have matured to a point where they should be able to manage their own time responsibly. And I think, on this end, the York School does a good job preparing students for university, where they will have to, in fact, plan everything by themselves and so forth. But I feel like, for like primary school or like middle school, it should be a more hands-on approach to education. That's my personal opinion, of course.
Do you guys want to share any fun Chinese school stories?
I'm trying to think. Um, not good. I think I trauma blocked it all out from my brain.
I mean, the most recent experience I had was like over the summer of grade 10, and I had to do like a summer course with another Mandarin teacher here in Toronto, but it was online. And that was a lot more like chill and like laid back than like the Chinese day school stories. But I've also
Yeah,
forgotten a lot
so
of those.
I went to Chinese school for 3 hours every morning from like age 4 to age 10. And oh my God, I mean, to be fair, I was a really bad student, but my whole grudge against Chinese school was that I knew zero Cantonese going into it, and they only spoke Cantonese there. So there was just a whole language barrier. Like I just didn't even know how to like respond. So I spent basically 3 hours playing Hot Wheels with my brother under the desk for every morning for like 6 years. So that was my whole Chinese school experience.
Right, like you would say like you didn't feel like welcomed into like the environment, right?
No, well, the teacher would speak to me, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I got no idea what you're saying." And then they would yell
Yeah.
at me. I'm like, "I still don't know what you're saying."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Like for
oh, you can go. You can
sure,
go.
yeah, okay. Like I'm not sure if this will like necessarily compare because your situation definitely sounds like a lot worse than mine. Because while I did not go to Chinese, sorry, Mandarin day school ever. There was once, I think back in the summer of grade 9, when I signed myself up for like a German course online. Because I used to, because I was like, I was curious about it. And like it wasn't necessarily like that I was bad at German, but like everyone else in the class was like, I don't know, I'm not saying this without sounding offensive, but everyone in the class was like ethnically like German.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt kind of left out. They're all like so much better than me, and like even if it doesn't have like a tangible effect on your learning, it still casts a shadow of psychological pressure that is hard
Mhm.
to resolve and remediate. So yeah.
Right. Um, yeah, I definitely think like when you're trying to learn a new language, it's definitely important to like feel welcomed. Because when I was a kid, I was like me. A lot of my friends were Chinese, and so we all grew up like in the house, like speaking Chinese. So we were all like at least like somewhat proficient whenever we went to Chinese school. But we had this one friend who was white, but his mom was Chinese. So she wanted him to also learn some Chinese, and like I just know he had a much harder time at Chinese school than the rest of us did, just because he doesn't speak it at home.
Well, I think just seeing the advantage of having two languages, because I took French up to grade 10, I would say me and Zen actually did a French summer program together back in grade 10. So I would say my French is a conversationalist at best, but I think I can see the advantage of having two languages. Like when I grow up, if I have a kid, I want that kid to be able to speak at least two languages so they can communicate and see another perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just worried that when I grow up and have a kid, my Chinese will not be good enough to help teach them Chinese. Like that is one of my biggest fears, to be honest. Like my niece right now, like even though my sister is like completely fluent in Chinese, my niece's Chinese is not very good.
I mean, it's never too late, to start relearning anything. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Um, I guess we can move on to the next topic. So
Uh,
you got this,
so
Steven.
yeah, so Sebby's and Zen, you guys are taking a trip to China over this summer, right?
yeah,
So what are you guys gonna be doing there, and like, what are your hopes for your trip?
Sebby, would you like to begin first?
Sure, I'll start. So Zen gave me a very generous offer of inviting me to come to China with him this summer with his family for 2 or 3 weeks. And the overall goal of it is for me to improve my Mandarin. So I've actually never been to China or Hong Kong, where my family is originally from, before. So I'm very excited to go. I think even now I'm a little bit overwhelmed because I know when I went to Quebec and you hear people speaking French, you're like, oh my God, this is not like those recordings from audio tests. It's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
they speak so fast and I don't know what they're saying. So I do know I'll have that moment and I'll be like, oh God, I don't understand what's happening. But I think it'll definitely be good for me because you learn best when you're just completely surrounded by, in this case, Chinese culture. So I'm excited. I think I'm the most excited for is the food. Love Chinese
Right.
food, obviously, you know.
Right.
And where are you guys going in China?
We gotta
Uh,
decide that.
Shanghai?
I'll be honest, we haven't fully decided. Um, it depends on the day because either we go around like the Shanghai Nanjing region, um, or we also go to Shanghai and then maybe like Beijing or something. Yeah, it's not fully decided. I'll say that.
Yeah, I was planning on going back during March break, but my mom was too busy. Or my mom will be too busy by then, so we canceled it, which is kind of disappointing because I haven't gone back since like I'm pretty sure 2018. So it's been a long time,
Oh damn.
and I did really want to go back at least like this year. So yeah, trying to plan another time too. But yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm probably going back over the summer as well. But like, I have not been back in China since I first immigrated here in like 2012. So like, when I go back, it's gonna be different. And I feel like the main part I'm worried about is because like I've only learned Chinese out of like textbooks in like Mandarin class. I feel like conversing would be difficult because like a lot of it, I from what I understand, a lot of like conversations are in like slang and like terms I wouldn't be
Yeah,
able to get
yeah.
in like
Yeah,
normally.
like
That's true.
I have a
Because
bunch of oh sorry
you can go, you can go, you can
I
go.
have a bunch of like Chinese friends here because my mom runs an international school. Like I meet a lot of like at least younger Chinese people like around my age, and like I say like whenever I talk with my parents, I feel like my Chinese is like pretty fluent, but especially like with a younger generation of Chinese people, there's just so much slang that I don't know that like I've never picked up before, and it makes it kind of difficult to converse with them as well.
Yeah, and like I like almost like go back to Shanghai every summer whenever I can, unless for COVID, of course. And still, like because I don't like usually use Chinese social media or anything like that. Like when I'm talking to like my old friends or like people of my generation in China, um, the vocabulary they use is quite different from what I'm used to. I'll say that. By the way, um, if you guys were to go back to China, what would you say would be like your dream destination?
Uh, I mean, for me personally, I think it would just have to be Beijing because most of my family's there, and not having seen them like personally for a long time, I think that would be like my number one choice. But uh, I don't know, cause I feel like I've never been to a lot of China, at least from what I remember. So I feel like it would be also nice to like go explore some other regions, especially like down south, because I've never been down
Yeah, I think for me, like, because I've gone back to China a couple times, but mostly whenever we go back to Beijing, where my dad is from, and Dongbei, where my mom is from. So, like, I'd like to like see some other cities, like maybe Shanghai or like Hong Kong, and like just like because like I've only been to those two places in China, right? So try to diversify my experience a little bit.
I've, I mean, I've never been, but I think I really want to go to the inlands. I've heard the inlands aren't really known for their tourism, especially like Lanzhou. I want to go to Lanzhou to try the noodles, but
Oh yeah.
um,
there. Right.
I think other tourist spots. Obviously, you guys see the Great Wall. I'm kind of a big history nerd, so I think anything about like the Ming Dynasty, I would love to see. Yeah,
Here's an interesting thing though.
or the Zhou Dynasty for that matter, Duncan.
True.
Here's the interesting thing though, because I feel like a lot of times, like, the touristy places known to like I guess foreigners are places like the Great Wall or like cities like Shanghai or Beijing. But at the same time, like when you're talking about like domestic tourism, um, a lot of the inland places are actually quite popular. And myself, I've had the opportunity to go to Inner Mongolia, as well as Lanzhou, by the way, and I had the famous Lanzhou noodles, back in 2019. So that was pretty interesting.
What do you think of Inner Mongolia, Zan?
Uh, like, I mean, first of all, like, it was my first time seeing this like geographical feature of like those like wide, expansive plains, which was pretty interesting. But then again, you get tired of it after like you know after hours and hours, being on a car and just seeing nothing ahead in the middle of nowhere. I remember our tour guide compared cities, in Inner Mongolia, as akin to, let's say, throwing like a handful of pearls in a soccer field, because aside from pearls, everything is just grassland.
So is
All
Inner
right.
Mongolia very like low dense population, like not many people?
Yeah, not a lot of people. And also another interesting thing is that well, in the past, like all the land was like publicly owned. Um, okay, like I don't want to get into politics here, but
It's all
if I
good.
say if I say anything bad, just cut it out. But yeah, but but I remember just one interesting fact was I remember my tour guide mentioned that although in the past the land was all publicly owned by people who were of Mongolian ethnicity and descent, um, in recent years there had been, more Han migration to the area, as to say that the government decided to transfer the land from public ownership into private ownership to the ethnic Mongolians. Um,
Sean.
so yeah, as a means of I guess privatization protection.
So yeah, as the history expert on today's podcast, I mean, China has had over like the last couple decades of like a major like cultural and economic shift. Um, like from like even like just like less than 100 years ago, China was like a very
Yeah.
poor country,
Yeah.
and like there were a lot of changes that like helped boost its economic prowess, but like now like some would say like not not like favorable or like not not well looked upon in Western culture. So is it as our history expert? Would you do you have anything to say about that?
I feel like you're digging me a hole for me to jump into right now. But that's a curious question because just I think last night, I went into this like Wikipedia rabbit hole of reading about events during the final years of the Cultural Revolution, including the Gang of Four, and Ling Biao and all of that stuff. And I mean, it is certainly quite interesting. Although I'm not exactly sure what question you are trying to ask, because I mean, as I guess a general rule, like, things that happen have positive and negative consequences. Um, and it would be hard for me to determine, at least, since I'm no expert in modern Chinese history, um, you know, the end result of that.
Listen, like I don't know, like I think like maybe like a couple weeks ago, I watched like this video on Xi Jinping's like uprising, and like it's actually really interesting how he came to power. Like the video like talked about like he came from a really poor family, and like just like the way he like came to power and like what he's doing now is just like it was just a really interesting video for me to yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
move on from the politics.
I feel like I'm like dodging landmines right now.
Okay, well, I guess we could talk about I don't know, like I mean, China is known for their censorship, right?
Oh my
You're definitely cutting this part out, Duncan. You're definitely cutting this part
I think it's an
Cut it out,
interesting.
cut it.
I think it's an interesting topic. Like how like do you think it's beneficial how China deals with their censorship compared to Western's more liberal like views on?
Yeah, FF, I'm not answering that.
I don't know enough about
I'll
it.
just say that the fact of the matter is that every country and government has forms of censorship one way or another. Even for example, like YouTube can shadow ban channels if they want to. And as for someone like me who actually likes to watch history content on YouTube, there've been a lot of channels recently that have been complaining about, demonetization and stuff. Not even in case where like they're talking about like bad things, but like, for example, if they want to do anything about Holocaust education, or if they wanted to talk about like even something like the Gulf War, um, yeah, these videos just would not make money, and they're kind of forced to like do other things or take the risk of starting like their own streaming service, which obviously has financial difficulties attached with that, which is unfortunate.
Very diplomatic answers then.
um. Guys, okay, we can talk about like Chinese family traditions. I guess like what do we all do during Lunar New Year? Yeah, it is coming up. It is coming up.
February the 10th, right?
Yeah, I believe
It's early this year. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a really hot take about Lunar New
Yeah.
Year.
Okay.
I do not like mooncake. I don't.
Okay.
I know
Okay,
it's
first of
a
all-
really it's
No,
a really
Duncan,
hot
Duncan,
cake, but I do not.
Duncan, you're wrong. First of all, people don't eat mooncakes during Lunar New Year. People eat mooncakes during the Moon Festival.
Mid-autumn.
Okay,
Yeah, bro. What are you saying?
Okay, my bad. But
Okay, but also you can't just say you don't like mooncakes because there's so many different types of mooncakes.
no,
You
but
can't
Yeah.
say-
I
You
don't.
know,
You don't like the texture?
I don't like any of them. They all taste strange.
Wait, Duncan. Chinese history quiz. Can you name me the order of the 12 animals?
Okay, I cannot name the order of the 12 animals.
Wait, Jen.
I can name like I can name like three.
rat was first, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
rat is first.
The ox is second.
I believe so.
Yes, I'm being called
The
out.
tiger third.
Uh,
I'm pretty sure the tiger's third.
I know
Oh,
chickens
oh,
after
oh,
dog.
Tiger is third.
I know chickens
Okay,
after
yeah.
dog. I do know that. Actually, no, chickens before
No,
dog.
chicken
Yeah,
after
chickens
dog,
before
bro.
dog.
Chickens
bro.
before dog. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
It's pig last, dog is 11, chicken is 10.
Yeah.
Is snake 9?
I think so,
Monkey
yeah.
is 9. Monkey is 9.
Oh, I have no idea.
Is
I have
goat,
no idea.
is it goat then?
It's
Goat is
goat.
not one of them. I don't think.
Goat before monkey.
Yeah.
Well, like
There's
not
there's
goat, like sheep.
there's
Oh yeah,
cows
wait.
somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's ox. That
Oh, sure.
so the
but yeah,
order-
oh,
the order is rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake,
bro. Trying to
horse-
like translate the names of the animal in Chinese to English is so weird.
horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, and pig.
You know, my dad is
Wait,
my
long?
dad is a rat, but he always lies and says he's a cow.
Yeah, because I don't know. There are a lot of, I guess, negative stereotypes attached to people who were born in the year of the rat.
Yeah.
And some people who are superstitious might
Kevin
say,
Durant.
some people who are superstitious might say that, you know, that bad things, for example, like natural calamities or floods or earthquakes, always happen during years of the rat.
Wait, so
I mean, the myth
COVID,
is
I
the rat
believe.
cheated, right?
COVID,
Like the
I
rat
believe.
hid in the
also-
ox's ear.
What's that?
Like, isn't the myth that the rat like hid in the ox's ear and then like just jumped out right
Yeah,
before it to beat
yeah.
him?
Wait, so Zhen,
Yeah,
how
COVID
big
was
of-
during the rat, you know.
was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
COVID was.
Yeah. Which I guess reinforces the superstition.
Yeah.
Wait,
That's
so Zen, so how big of like a superstition or like belief in the Chinese zodiac is there in China? Is it like a very mainstream thing to believe in, or
According to what I know, I mean, people know about it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they all like heavily believe in
like
it.
believe in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the equivalent of just like the astrological zodiac we have, like more like. the Western
Although the difference is that whereas, you know, people in the West might use the astro zodiac for, let's say, relationship purposes,
Right, yeah.
people in China would use the zodiac more so, you know, in terms of like business, management and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
What other superstitions do you guys know about, like, that
I
come
mean,
from Chinese culture?
the number 4, right?
Number 4.
Yeah,
4 is bad.
it's bad.
That's
Bad
true.
number.
Um,
I don't know much else, to be honest.
I think it's a lot of
Oh.
stuff doing with like festivals, like
Wait, have you guys heard of the one where you're like holding your chopsticks low? Like my mom always said like
There's
hold your
there's
chopsticks
a lot
high
of stuff with chopsticks.
because
it's like
the
you
higher
can't-
you hold them, like the higher
Yeah.
you'll go in life. I don't know, something weird like that.
It's like you can't stick it directly.
Yeah.
Because that's like the funeral incense thing.
Yeah. Have you guys burned incense before?
yeah.
So,
When I went back to China in 2018, we visited my grandparents' graves, and like we did all the like putting flowers, and so we did like everything, and like it just like felt so surreal because like the place was beautiful, like where they were buried, and like I don't know, I felt really in touch with my culture. Like I don't know how else to say it, but yeah.
That's great.
yeah, speaking of graves, Ian.
Oh, I mean, my grandma is buried here in Canada, so like also she was Christian, so we did not have more of like a Chinese funeral. It's like that was different for me. But I remember as a kid, I don't know whose it was, but I did go to a funeral in China. And we did the thing where we like burned like paper money, but like not real money, like
Right.
it's like fake
Yeah,
paper
yeah.
money. Right? Yeah.
My grandmother's plots in York University, York Cemetery, sorry, in North York, and yeah, so it's kind of interesting because their whole family bought a massive plot with for multiple graves, and yeah, like the effort my mom pays extra money to have the plot maintained, have the grass cut. We plant flowers like once or twice a month, and I guess kind of just the culture in remembering and respecting your dead is really prevalent in Chinese culture. Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
wondering, Duke.
You can go. You
Sorry.
can go.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you guys also like do the thing where like you only eat after the oldest person at the table has like ate?
Like regularly? No.
No, I don't
I
really do that at
I
home.
mean, that's the case for me because my mom is the chef in the house, thank God, because my dad can't cook for his life. But yeah, generally it's like you only eat after my mom takes a bite, then you're like free to go ahead.
I see.
Is that the case for you, Zen?
I mean, when I was growing up, yeah, but these days not as much.
Oh, is saying a grace a big thing at your Chinese? Like whenever I go to a Chinese family gathering, like everybody says grace.
I
Not for
have
me.
I don't think so.
no.
No, that's not really a thing.
For me, it's crazy. They're like everyone will like bow their heads and then they'll say the grace always in Chinese, so I never know when it's gonna start or end. And then after that, everyone says amen and then start eating. So that's kind of just a thing for me.
I mean, yeah, I guess it was like that was like for me when I went back to China. But like over here, like my parents they like aren't too strict about those type of things. So yeah, especially my dad. Like my dad is like he's like very relaxed about all of like Chinese traditional stuff. I think maybe because of his personal political beliefs, but yeah. So what do you guys? So like I know like a big Chinese tradition is like getting hongbao during like
Yeah.
for like birthdays or for anything like like in Western culture we like giving gifts of just money is like something really frowned upon, right? But like
Right.
in Chinese culture it's like a completely different thing. So what are you guys' just thoughts on like that sort of thing?
Um, I mean, I think the thing about giving people money is that like they can choose what they want to do with it. But at like the same time, personally, I much prefer if like somebody like put an effort of like thinking about like a present. Um, and then like yeah, I guess it's the non-monetary aspect of the gift that I think um oftentimes matter more than the monetary value itself. Although at the same time, I feel like oftentimes, people in the West, instead of just giving direct money, they just give gift cards, which are like the same thing once you really think
Yeah,
about it.
that's
Yeah.
true.
So, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say kind of like basing what Zen says, even now sometimes like the act of someone giving me something, I know Zen for my birthday, he got me a mouse and it was really touching because I was like complaining that we couldn't play Minecraft together because my mouse is like a crappy office mouse. And I only mentioned it once and then I opened up my present and yeah, so that was really touching. So I think that is a lot more significant than someone just giving me, okay, here's like $100, go buy a mouse. Like, yeah.
Right, like I guess like as a kid growing up, my parents weren't really big into like gift giving either. Like like I knew who Santa Claus was, but like my parents never did the whole Santa thing. They would just take me out to the mall and buy me something for Christmas. Like we never did like the whole presents under the tree thing. So like I guess like as a kid, like I guess like I had more like choice in what I got for like birthdays or Christmas, but like now, yeah, definitely I much prefer like the sentiment of it or like the thought of it than like the actual gift itself.
Do you guys think that sometimes that people who are, I guess, are raised in different cultures often lose out on the best of either culture and instead just become like middle of the road, like where the whole culture thing gets kind of washed out?
Mm, I mean,
Yeah, that's a great question because ever since like my parents like have moved here, like a lot of Chinese people do like view Western culture as like very like superior, right? Like viewing like
Yeah.
America, well, I guess we do live in Canada, but like viewing America as like really high, and so like my parents would often like try to do a lot of Western like traditions, like Thanksgiving, like making a whole turkey and stuff, and like I feel like because of that I feel like I've lost out a bit on some of the more Chinese cultural traditions. Um, yeah, so I would definitely just think that like you definitely get washed out a little bit.
Well, my mom kind of had this um experience, growing up because her parents would wake her up and do like Canadian things, whatever that is. So they actually they bought a cottage in the middle of nowhere, like in Algonquin Park, and they would go fishing there. And my mom hated it. She was like, "Why are we doing this?" And her grandpa and her uncle, sorry, her dad and her uncles were all about, this is what being Canadian's about, like going fishing, going hunting. And I guess in that point it's good because you get to experience. Because I guess to be fair, that really is Canadian culture, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
The really outdoors aspect.
Right.
So I think being in the middle, it's never really in the middle. It's just, I guess, having a personal opinion of the worst of the two. But I think it is important. Like my mom says, she's glad she learned how to gut a fish. She learned how to sail a boat, just so that she has it. She could say, "Oh, I've done Canadian culture things."
And so Sebby, you said your dad is like Indian, right? Do you guys ever do like any like Indian traditional culture things?
So that is one thing my dad, I'll be honest, did not do well at. So he his parents divorced at a young age, so he
Mhm.
didn't really have like much like cultural aspects from both sides. And his mom was an immigrant and wasn't really focused on like keeping the Indian preserved. And my dad, she was more just trying to keep them afloat in Canada, right?
Right.
So I will say my dad doesn't have much Indian in him and didn't do much to pass the Indian on to me. Like I don't know much about traditions. I'll be honest. No, yeah. So that's one thing I kind of miss. I don't speak Hindi or any Indian language. I would say if I were to associate with either being Chinese or Indian, I think it's definitely towards the Chinese side. Sadly, yeah.
To be fair though,
Right.
Sebby, you also have another heritage in your name itself, because you do know where the name D'Souza comes from, right?
Colonizers of Portugal, baby. Portuguese colonizers for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I guess like I mean your dad like grew up in Canada, right? So like I guess like from his side you was like be pretty much like a second generation, right? I feel like that's the same with my niece. Like she was born here, grew up here, and I feel like she definitely would definitely like say that she's infinitely more Canadian than she is Chinese, which is like very strange because like she does live in our house and like in our house we do only speak Chinese like all the time. And and it's like, cause like I would always speak to my parents in Chinese, but like she like speaks to like my sister in English, and like it's just like sometimes so strange to hear English in my house because we always speak Chinese all the time. So yeah,
If you guys had kids, like, would you speak to them like only in Chinese?
I think I would low key if I do master Mandarin. I think because I'll speak whatever language they don't speak at school. Put it that way.
I mean, I feel like that also depends on like if the mom of the kid would also speak Chinese. Because
right.
you just,
Yeah.
I
Unless
feel like
Right, right.
that would be very weird if you're speaking Chinese to a kid and it's just you two, and the kid
No,
doesn't
but
even fully understand it. So you're just like,
I have a friend who's Hungarian in Chinese, and his dad, who's Chinese, only ever spoke Chinese to him, and his mom, who's Hungarian, only spoke Hungarian to him. So he's practically bilingual,
that's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
And I think
That is nice.
it does take a special kind of kid, especially they're like, oh my god, why does he learn 3 languages as like a 5-year-old?
Right.
Like, life's not fair. But I think once they're our age, you're like, oh my god, thank you so much, mom, dad. Like at this point, I regret. Like, I really wish my mom was hard on me, being like, I will only speak Cantonese to you, because now I have none of it. And I'm like, sad.
Yeah, and like at that young age, like that's when like you retain languages the
Yeah.
most, right? It's the fastest
Yeah.
time. I mean, I hope my Chinese stays well enough that I could talk to my kid in only Chinese. But I don't know if I
Yeah.
don't know if I'll be able to.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like same. Cause like I feel like right now the main things that are keeping my Chinese level like where it is that I'm living at home. I speak to my parents in Chinese, and
Yeah.
I'm also learning Chinese in school. But like I feel like once I get into uni and like for that entire section, it's just kind of like I don't know if it's gonna stay at that level.
I mean, you know, there can always be is like let's say like Chinese like cultural clubs or something like that
Right.
in uni. And I remember not long ago there was an initiative at York to create one. What are your guys' opinion on, let's say, if there was a Chinese club in York,
Well,
or if
I
there
think
is one
that's
right now?
why we created this Chinese
True.
Canadian
Oh.
student lives podcast. So
True.
like we could discuss more about Chinese traditions and culture.
But we're not speaking Chinese, bro. You know,
Well,
but people who are in French
well,
club, they actually like
then
talk in
I don't-
French.
I don't think it would work out logistically if we were to only speak Chinese.
I mean, we do have like less than 10 minutes left. We could try
Right.
speaking Chinese for the rest of the.
We
the
could
rest of
try
the-
to.
I think I'll be like, oh, Wutong. Wutong.
I mean, for me, I have a really hard. I don't know why, but I have a really hard time like switching back and forth between English and Chinese. Like when I'm with my parents, I speak Chinese really well, and like it's because like my brain understands that it's like Chinese time, right? But like at
Right.
school or like with people I would normally speak English to, I have always felt like my Chinese like drops a significant level, but I just don't know why.
Yeah, that's the same for me because I feel like, I mean, I think it's just like a general thing that, you know, as human beings, our brains are more like accustomed to, let's say, like just focusing on one thing at a time. Like for example, like, you know, when I do go back to China every summer for those 2 months, like my Chinese level just like skyrockets, you know.
Yeah.
But the moment I like come back to Canada, I like start speaking again, and like the same thing for French. Like before like a French test, like even if it's like a writing test, you know, I'll watch like French videos on YouTube or like listen to like French music just to get my brain into like this like French zone, so that like suddenly like I start memorizing vocabulary that you know saw for like an instant like 5 years ago, and that really helps.
Well, yeah, like I will say, when you're surrounded, like means that when we did that program together, like I would say that was my peak French. I think, at least
Yeah.
for me, because you're literally only speaking French, and your brain is kind of just like, English is out the door, like it's only French time. So I think if you really want to be immersive in a language like that, you just gotta completely surround yourself with it.
Yeah, and like when we were there, like, you know, people were talking about having like starting to have like dreams in French. And frankly, like for a while, I'll be honest, I like actually had dreams in French. And I like talked to myself and I thought in French as well,
That's
which was like
crazy.
completely bizarre.
Yeah.
But that's what the surrounding environment does, and I think that's really important.
All right, so we're almost done this episode, and as a starting episode, I feel like we've covered a bit of ground on like Chinese culture as a whole, and but for like our following episodes, is there anything you guys feel like you would like to see or hear from us in this podcast?
Especially since we will be having like some teachers as guests, and like, is there anything you would like us to ask them? We will definitely like take it into consideration.
I think maybe having. Oh yeah, Zen, go
Sorry,
ahead.
you go. It's fine.
maybe having what it's like having Chinese friends. I think you can look at Andrew and Philip, for example, two of our friends who are only surrounded by Chinese people. I think kind of like the effect it has on them
Right.
of yeah. I
I
think a
think
great cultural exposure for Philip is playing mahjong at Ian's house.
Right.
For me, I think maybe we can do things that are like actually like more Chinese. like like maybe if talking in Chinese is a bridge too far. I don't know. I mean, maybe we can watch like clips of Chungwan,
Right.
or like quiz each other on like things that are Chinese. I think
You do
that
a
like
writing game, Duncan.
No, that's
true,
not true.
true. I think that like challenge based format might
Okay.
make this podcast more engaging.
Okay.
Okay, that is some good things. Um, is there anything? I guess we will be ending it soon. So, as our guest, is there anything you guys want to plug? any, any promotions? As this will be a very popular podcast with lots of
At the
views
York School.
at your
Yeah.
school.
Sure,
So,
guys. Be sure to check out at Zilorn for my awesome electronic music.
he does make good
Sebby,
music.
Sebby, do you want to plug something?
Oh no, I'm good. I'm not a famous producer like Zhen.
All right, I guess that does it.